there is a man who seems to appear everywhere. At Davos, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the IMF, the UN, even private receptions at Buckingham Palace. He isn't a president, he commands no army, and yet every door opens. His name is Bill Gates, the software pioneer who built Microsoft, and then, instead of fading into luxury, reappeared at the center of world affairs. He funds health programs across continents, partners with governments and global agencies, and invests in everything from vaccines to farmland to clean energy. To supporters, he's a visionary using wealth to solve humanity's hardest problems. To critics, he's an unelected figure whose influence reaches deeper than any voter's choice. This isn't a story about good or evil. It's a story about scale and how private wealth can now shape public policy. Because in the 21st century, power no longer needs a throne. Sometimes it only needs a foundation. Most billionaires sell the same origin myth, the lone dreamer in a garage. But Bill Gates' story began elsewhere, in privilege, education, and access. He was born in 1955 in Seattle. His grandfather was a banker. His mother served on the boards of major charities and companies, including United Way and IBM. His father was a respected attorney and philanthropist. From an early age, Gates watched how influence moved through meetings, committees, conversations at polished tables. He learned that money is useful, but relationships move faster. At 13, he was already programming computers at a private prep school. At Harvard, he saw the dawn of personal computing and the chance to build an empire from code. With Paul Allen, he founded Microsoft. Within 2 decades, Windows ran on nearly every personal computer on Earth. The company became one of the most powerful technology monopolies in history. Success came with scrutiny. In 1998, the US Department of Justice accused Microsoft of using its dominance to crush competition.
The Justice Department has charged Microsoft with engaging in anti-competitive and exclusionary practices.
The court ruled the company had violated antitrust law. The decision damaged Gates's public image, but not his ambition. He stepped down from day-to-day management in the early 2000s, saying he wanted to focus on global health and education. It looked like retreat. In reality, it was reinvention, because when technology gave him fortune, he built a company. When philanthropy gave him access, he began building something larger, influence without borders. After 2 decades at the top of the tech world, and one bruising antitrust battle, Bill Gates made a move few expected. He turned away from Microsoft's boardrooms and toward the humanitarian stage. In 2000, he and his then-wife, Melinda, established what would become the world's largest private philanthropic organization. Its mission sounded simple: reduce poverty, fight disease, and improve education. But the scale was anything but small. Tens of billions of dollars flowed into initiatives across every continent, from vaccines and sanitation projects to agricultural reform. Supporters called it visionary, a billionaire using data and science to solve humanity's hardest problems.
In the richness that the humanities brings us, if you die of malaria, you don't get that opportunity.
Critics called it influence, disguised as altruism, placed the Gates Foundation deeper inside global institutions. By the late 2000s, the foundation had become one of the largest funders of the World Health Organization, second only to the United States itself. Its money reached universities, research labs, and public health programs around the world. To many, it was the natural evolution of a tech visionary turned philanthropist. To others, it raised a harder question. When one man can fund entire programs, whose priorities shape global health, the world's or his? Over time, Gates's focus shifted from solving today's diseases to preventing tomorrow's outbreaks. He began funding vaccine research, pandemic modeling, and early warning systems. To his admirers, it was foresight. To his skeptics, it was preparation for power on a new scale. His message was clear. The next global crisis wasn't a matter of if, but when. And when that crisis arrived, his foundation, his network, and his influence were already waiting. Next, the outbreak that turned prediction into presence.
In central China, a man has died following an outbreak of an unknown pneumonia-like virus, which officials say comes from the same family as the deadly SARS virus.
When fear became currency and Gates's power reached every screen on Earth.
This is the scariest thing I've ever been through in my whole life.
In 2017, at the World Economic Forum, global health leaders launched a new initiative,
the Coalition of Academic Preparedness Innovations.
CEPI. Its goal, accelerate vaccines for emerging infectious diseases. Its early backers included Norway, India, the Wellcome Trust, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. To supporters, CEPI was foresight, a safety net for humanity. To critics, it showed how a few private donors could shape public health priorities before any outbreak even began. When COVID-19 struck, that network was already in place. Gates's foundation had long been one of the World Health Organization's largest non-government funders. The World Health Organization coordinated responses, shared data, and recommended policy, and the foundation's partnerships helped supply vaccines to the developing world through programs such as Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Around the globe, governments built their decisions on models and research from a few key institutes: Imperial College London, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation in Seattle. Both had received Gates Foundation grants years before. That overlap didn't prove coordination, but it revealed how interconnected the public health world had become. As vaccines raced through testing, Gates became one of the most visible private figures in the conversation. Interviews, op-eds, funding pledges, a familiar face in the middle of global panic. Supporters said he filled a leadership void that governments couldn't. Skeptics asked whether one person should ever have that much informal authority. By 2021, billions of doses were produced and distributed, many through systems his foundation had helped design. Once again, his money wasn't just buying solutions, it was buying a seat at the table where solutions were defined. But pandemics were only one battlefield. Next, he turned to something even more fundamental than medicine: the food on your plate. After years devoted to public health, Bill Gates turned his focus to another global challenge: food. The problem? How to feed a growing population without destroying the planet. His solution? Science. In 2006, the Gates and Rockefeller Foundations launched AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. Its mission: modernize African agriculture, improve yields, and fight hunger. The idea was to introduce advanced seeds, fertilizers, and modern farming methods to millions of small-scale farmers. Supporters praised it as a new green revolution, a chance to lift families out of poverty. Critics warned it could make farmers dependent on expensive patented seeds and imported chemicals. Some countries introduced new seed laws to standardize quality and encourage commercial investment. But those same laws, according to advocacy groups, limited traditional seed sharing, the community networks that had sustained local agriculture for generations. Evaluations years later produced mixed results. Yields rose in some regions, but not enough to match expectations. In others, soil degradation and debt grew faster than profits. AGRA itself has acknowledged both progress and shortfalls, saying the challenges are larger than any one organization. Today, Gates funds research into drought-resistant crops, lab-grown meat, and synthetic protein, all aimed at reducing emissions from traditional farming. To some, it's visionary climate leadership. To others, it's the next step in concentrating control over what the world eats. Investigations by the Land Report and other outlets found that Gates and associated entities have quietly purchased more than 200,000 acres of farmland in the United States. He says it's a long-term investment in sustainable agriculture. Skeptics see it as an experiment in ownership, where philanthropy meets empire building. But influence doesn't end with land or food, because to protect power, you must also protect the story that tells it. Every empire needs a narrative, and in the modern world, the story often matters more than the truth. As Gates's foundation expanded across health, education, and agriculture, it began funding another sector, the media. Since the 2000s, major outlets have received grants from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to support reporting on public health, development, and climate issues. Recipients include the BBC, The Guardian, Le Monde, Der Spiegel, and others, all openly disclosed on the Foundation's website. The Foundation says this support helps journalists cover global issues that would otherwise lack resources. Critics counter that even well-intentioned funding can blur the line between coverage and advocacy. During the COVID crisis, Gates appeared regularly in interviews and expert panels. Many of those same outlets had benefited from his foundation's journalism programs. No one claimed he dictated their stories, but the perception of closeness raised familiar questions. When private funding supports both the policy work and the storytelling around it, does it expand understanding or narrow it? When one figure becomes the lens through which the world's biggest problems are explained, what happens to those who see the problem differently? Some analysts argue that this isn't manipulation, it's simply the modern shape of influence. Money flowing toward media that share a worldview of progress through technology and philanthropy. But in that shared worldview, disagreement often sounds like defiance. Control doesn't always silence you. Sometimes it just decides which voice gets the microphone. Because influence that shapes policy can still be challenged, but influence that shapes belief becomes invisible. And in a world built on power, what happens when no one can vote it out? In a democracy, power is meant to answer to people. Presidents can be replaced, parliaments can be dissolved, even the most entrenched governments can fall. But private power plays by different rules. It doesn't run for office, it doesn't face elections, and it rarely fades with time. Bill Gates holds no political title. He can't write laws or declare war. Yet through partnerships, grants, and global initiatives, his reach extends into health, education, agriculture, and climate policy. To many, that reach has saved lives, funding vaccines, classrooms, and renewable technology. To others, it represents a shift that no one voted on, where public institutions quietly depend on private wealth to solve collective problems, when foundations influence health strategies, when investors shape food systems, when philanthropists fund the information we consume, the world begins to change hands without anyone noticing. None of this makes Gates a villain. He may genuinely believe in the causes he supports, but belief doesn't erase the question: who keeps private power accountable when it becomes global? History shows that every era creates its own kind of empire. The difference today is subtle. It's not territory that's conquered, but dependency. And the flags no longer mark nations, but foundations. When wealth shapes the rules of progress, philanthropy becomes policy, generosity becomes governance, and accountability disappears behind good intentions. Bill Gates isn't the only one. He's a mirror reflecting a century where the new monarchs build systems, not kingdoms. This is Strivor, the minds, the empires, the psychology of power. Subscribe, watch, question everything.